Gary Stearman with a word about the upcoming Orlando Prophecy Summit, March 28th through 30th. It's going to be fabulous, Bob.
It's going to be the Prophecy Conference for the Ages. 24 speakers in sunny Orlando, Florida. The sunshine, the beaches, Disney World, Universal Studios, the Holy Land theme park, and 24 incredible speakers.
Like Chuck Missler, Bill Salas, L.A. Marzulli, and, by the way, Mark Biltz.
Don't forget Mark Biltz. 2 weeks before the blood moons hit Israel, Mark Biltz is going to be speaking at our conference. L.A. Marzulli, fresh off his trip to Peru, his hunt for the skulls and the skeletons of the Nephilim. It's going to be fabulous.
Bob, for our viewers in the southeastern United States, this is a one-day drive to a beautiful hotel, and we're going to have the most fabulous get-together you can possibly imagine. Be with us. Call the 800 number right now, 1-800-475-1111. We'll see you there. Hi, Gary Stearman. Time for an update on this Friday, the 3rd of January of the year 2014. I want to report on something that happened in Colorado. I'm pretty sure you've read about it. I'm holding here a reprint from the Denver Post, January 1, 2014. And by the way, January 1, 2014, in a historic swirl of commerce and cannabis, the world's first stores licensed to sell marijuana legally to anyone 21 or older opened in Colorado. Of course, that would be Wednesday, the 1st of January, 2014. From Telluride to Denver, it says thousands of people cheerfully stood in line for hours to buy legal marijuana after presenting nothing more than identification. I assume it'd be a driver's license or something like that. Marijuana activists were jubilant. They spoke in glowing terms. One young lady said, "I've been waiting 34 years for this moment," Chrissy Robinson said, at one store called the Evergreen Apothecary in Denver, at 2 a.m. to be among the first in line. She said, "I've been smoking since I was 14. No more sneaking around." And many, many stores all over Colorado fully licensed and in operation to sell legal cannabis. Well, what's the big deal about a marijuana high, or perhaps we should say Rocky Mountain high, which to me is a very dark day, and I believe that the Coloradoans will rue the day that they began to allow this sort of thing in their state. But the leaves, the stems, the seeds, and the flowers of the cannabis plant have a property owing to a specific ingredient called tetrahydrocannabinol of inducing euphoria. When marijuana is smoked, THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, moves almost immediately from the lungs to the bloodstream to the brain. The effects last from an hour to 3 hours. By the way, marijuana, pot as it's sometimes called, can be baked into cookies or brownies. Yeah. And experts say that if those brownies are eaten, about 30 minutes later, you begin to notice the euphoria, which can last up to 4 hours, along with rapid heartbeat, increased blood pressure, red eyes, dry mouth, increased appetite, slowed reaction time, extremely slowed memory responses, by the way. Long-term use has been linked to impaired thinking, memory problems, panic attacks, and other psychological issues. And I don't have the time to go into it, but here's a quote from a Dr. Nora Folkow, director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse. She says, "When you smoke marijuana, you cannot memorize or learn as you should. The other issue," she says, "is that the younger you start smoking marijuana, the higher the risk not only becoming addicted to marijuana, but it also appears to increase the risk for the addiction to other drugs in adulthood." In other words, it has been aptly referred to as a gateway drug. In the brain, there is a central organ called the hippocampus, responsible for creating and storing memory. Well, memory impairment from marijuana use occurs when THC alters the way the hippocampus processes information and locks it into memory. Most of the evidence from this has come from years and years of animal studies, but there have been some human studies and testing indicating a couple of things. Number one, it's harder to memorize. It's harder to concentrate when you're on THC, cannabis, marijuana. And not only that, but it's harder to lock in memory. And this problem begins to accelerate exponentially as one grows older. And so there are a number of reasons to think that marijuana use is not just a harmful, sweet, innocent thing. Getting high, getting stoned is thought to be desirable. You relax, you get the munchies where you just sort of nibble on food all the time, and who doesn't want to sit around in a relaxed and euphoric state eating cookies or potato chips or whatever? Well, I don't, because there is another effect besides all of the negative ones we've mentioned, that is expressly forbidden in the Bible. By the way, more unwanted side effects with marijuana include not only memory difficulties, but physiological difficulties, eye problems, dry mouth, both reddening of the eyes and certain neurological problems in the eyes, feelings of paranoia, anxiety, and yet its use, the use of cannabis as a recreational or medicinal drug and as part of religious or spiritual rites goes back to the 3rd millennium before Christ. And cannabis, as we call it today, has had a number of other names down through the ages, but it's been known as a drug that could open the eye of the inner mind to thoughts perhaps beyond the ordinary daily perceptions. Some call it being stoned. Some call it having the third eye opened. However you look at it, it's occultic in nature, and it goes all the way back to Genesis. When the Lord placed Adam and Eve in the garden, Genesis 2:17, he said, there are other trees in the garden, you may eat of their fruit, but in Genesis 2:17 he said, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Well, you know the story. The serpent tempted the woman, and in Genesis 3:4, the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. In other words, the serpent said to the woman, eat of this forbidden fruit. It's going to open the inner eye of your mind to visions that can't be seen without the effect of the fruit. To me, there was certainly a psychotropic effect connected with the fruit of that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the opening of that inner eye, allowing one to see in forbidden places, has been, I suppose, accomplished in many ways, many times, many places ever since then. The Bible refers to it as sorcery, by the way. Isaiah 49, or 47:9, speaking of the Babylonians, says this, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood, that is speaking of Babylon as a woman, they shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. Isaiah 47:12 says, stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth, if so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. So Isaiah has a curse against the woman, Mystery Babylon, saying, you're going to be judged for your sorceries. Well, the Hebrew word for sorceries is keshef. And keshef involves the harvesting of herbs, which can be ingested, usually by mixing them into a liquid, drinking the liquid as a potion, and opening the inner eye, the spiritual eye, in a kind of in a kind of way that allows you to peer into places that you shouldn't. Sorcery, then, is nothing more or less than getting stoned, getting high, looking into places that you should not look. By the way, in the New Testament, the word sorceries is used 4 times. We hear of Simon the sorcerer in Acts 8:9, but there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that himself was some great one. And the word sorceries in the New Testament, and it's used 4 times, is a translation from the Greek word pharmakeia. Pharmakeia means the mixing of an elixir or a potion or the ingestion of an herb designed to open the inner mind to new vistas. Again, keshef in the Old Testament means to mix up a potion, swallow it, and open your eyes so that you can move into the regimes of the psychedelic, of the sorcerer, and come back and read minds, predict the future, do all kinds of mental feats, supposedly, through sorcery. In the New Testament, the word sorceries, a translation of pharmakeia, which we have in English as pharmacy, drugs, and it's always amazed me that the word pharmakeia, translated sorcerer or sorcery in the New Testament, is the precise same word that we use for pharmacy or for a drugstore or for drugs in general. And sorceries are condemned roundly. Revelation 18:23, the light of the candle shall no more shine at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Again, the word is pharmakeia, sorcery. Well, back to the point of origin in this story today, and that is tetrahydrocannabinol, cannabis, pot, marijuana, legalized in Colorado. Let's just say it the way the Bible would say it. Sorcery has been legalized in Colorado. I'm Gary Stearman. Well, things are getting worse, but the Lord said it would be like that in the days just preceding his coming. So keep looking up. And we're going to have the most fabulous get-together you can possibly imagine. Be with us. Call the 800 number right now, 1-800-475-1111. We'll see you there. Hi, Gary Stearman. Time for an update on this Friday, the 3rd of January of the year 2014. I want to report on something that happened in Colorado. I'm pretty sure you've read about it. I'm holding here a reprint from the Denver Post, January 1.
Conference, L.A. Marzulli, fresh off his trip to Peru, his hunt for the skulls and the skeletons of the Nephilim. It's going to be fabulous.
Bob, for our viewers in the southeastern United States, this is a one-day drive to a beautiful hotel.
World, Universal Studios, the Holy Land theme park, and 24 incredible speakers.
Like Chuck Missler, Bill Salas, L.A. Marzulli, and, by the way, Mark Biltz.
Don't forget Mark Biltz. 2 weeks before the Blood Moons hit Israel, Mark Biltz is going to be speaking at our...
Gary Stearman with a word about the upcoming Orlando Prophecy Summit, March 28th through 30th. It's going to be fabulous, Bob.
It's going to be the Prophecy Conference for the Ages. 24 speakers in sunny Orlando, Florida. The sunshine, the beaches, Disney